Good morning. What is great, good, and real? And welcome to day 55 of the Do You Rules live stream experience. I'm your host, Cliche Jeff, and it is a beautiful, blessed day. Do I look different? I know I look different. I got a big strip across my nose, and I felt inclined to point that out. Why? Because anytime there's a physical difference or something of physical significance, it strikes consciousness and ego and insecurity, right? And I think apropos and quite brilliant timing by the universe, as today we're going to talk about our physical health. I'm almost nervous and uncomfortable to do so because I think that when we discuss the physical, it can come off very judgmental and hurtful. But there's some realities we have to get to as a people, as a community, especially for the Do You rules. I wouldn't be me if I didn't offer encouragement about your physical body, about your physical health, about your physical appearance. It matters. It matters. And you, like me, I'm sure, have a thought about our physical. And I'm going to argue today that at some juncture, we might have forgotten or we dismiss and suppress what we think about ourselves physically. And that's going to be my leverage point. I'll take you through my journey a little bit, my physical journey of health or lack of health into what I believe is the healthiest I've ever been in my life, the reasons, the rationales, and just every day, just the everyday life. How can we be everyday healthy? Why? I want you to have as much life as possible. I mean that sincerely. I want you to have as much life as possible. And there's just a reality to, aside from what it looks like physically and being ridiculed and laughed at, that the less physical health you have, the less life you have. My beautiful, blessed people, I'm not telling you nothing you don't already know. What time is it? Come on, Siri. What time is it? 4:30 a.m. I did get on a little bit before 4:30. So I thought that was cool. And I got on today a little early because I've been excited for this topic since yesterday. I've been thinking about it. I actually thought about it during my workout yesterday, and I felt like it was just appropriate and it was a good time. Red Book of Physicality, because why wouldn't it be physical today since we're talking about the physical? Hydration system. If you don't drink water, you should. My daughter told me yesterday now the recommendation is up to 11 cups of water. I promise you. I have just about a gallon of water by noon. That's just part of where I'm at. Oh, my PC just gave me an alert that caught my attention. Chapstick, you just saw me put on. So, my beautiful, blessed people, we're going to get into some things. I'm going to use sort of what the tagline for today is, which is, think about this. We're talking about our physical bodies, our physical health, and how it can help us feel better about life. And I'm going to argue with you today that you should be making a concerted effort to work on your physical body every single day. And if I have to rationalize and reason with you the logic to the extent of the health, I'm not sure what we're talking about. I'm not sure why we might get that sense that we need that we have to be convinced to do something physically. I wrote a lot of things down. I've been writing about this since yesterday. And so I hope this comes off in a way that's beneficial to you. Again, if you hear, how about this? How about this? If you find yourself in a situation where I say, yo, we're going to talk about your physical health and your physical body and what you look like. If you get uncomfortable, that's a sign that you really got to work on your physical body. I read this line from Buddha yesterday. In a battle of egos, he who loses it wins. You hear what I'm trying to tell you? If your ego flares up about your physical health, because don't judge me physically, it's probably because you don't look physically how you want to look. Let's stop playing games. Let's be honest and direct. Let's lose the ego and just ask ourselves, because that's what I asked myself at some juncture. I looked at myself and I said, yourself, look at yourself. Is this what you want to look like? And if you ask yourself that question and you come back with an answer of no, then there's something you probably want to do about it. So let's just talk about it. Here's what I wrote down as far as the overarching premise that I think I'm going to use to drive as momentum for the conversation, as impetus, inspiration, motivation, and our tagline. And it's this: when it comes to our physical health and our physical body, make a proud effort. Make a proud effort. And in the space of improvement, that can apply to everything, but we're talking about physical. Make a proud effort. Your physical is a reflection of how you feel about you. I think that that's big. We'll talk about that a little bit in detail. But I have some statistics that were mind-blowing to me. The Fortune 500, if you think about the Fortune 500, which are the top 500 companies in the world, they surveyed every CEO of the 500 companies that are part of the Fortune 500. 485 of them work out 5 times a week. What does that tell us? Well, people who are CEOs and are high achievers in business, it doesn't make them the most successful people in the world. But we can look at them and say, well, they run 500 of the best companies as far as how we judge companies. They're CEOs. They know their physical bodies are pretty important. They work out 5 times a week. Now, I think logically, part of why I go to is, well, when you have that kind of success, you don't want to die too quick. You want to enjoy and indulge and certainly stretch life to the fullest, because why? You're living pretty good. As a CEO of a Fortune 500, there's a lot of reasons to stay alive. Which then begs the question for me on the flip. If you're not a CEO and you don't have that lifestyle, clearly you don't have the same incentive and the motivation. Why? Well, you're not a CEO of a Fortune 500. But that also tells me is this, that a CEO of a company that's successful finds time. And now we could argue and debate, because they have all this money and all these things around them. They have nannies and all the schools and the resources and the cooks and the chefs. And yes, sure. But they find the time. And trust me, they have just as much time as you do. So there's time. I also wrote this down. This made me pause and shocked me. You talk about into the bone shock, that I felt it inside of me. This is hurtful. Think about this. If current trends continue, specific to overweight and obesity, I know those words are very uncomfortable, but like Buddha said, in the battle of egos, he who loses it wins. So just listen to the data. If current overweight and obesity trends continue, 81% of men and 82% of women. Listen to the math on that. That means, 8 out of every 10. If you lined up if you took 10 men and 10 women, 8 of them, 8.1 and 8.2, by 2050, which is 25 years from now, 81%, 82% would be overweight or obese. My beautiful people, I haven't even asked you how you're doing. How are you doing today? How are you doing today? And whether you agree or not, a lot of how you think you're doing has to do with your physical in a litany of ways. Literally, quite literally, in how you feel because of the reflection that you give off to yourself. Come on, what are we talking about? How are you doing? If you're overweight and obese, I'm going to argue with you in a very healthy, respectful way that you're doing a lot less better than someone who's physically in shape. How are you doing today? Use me as an example right now. This strip across my nose. If it's like a big obese and overweight strip that signified that. Literally, think about how the mind works, all right? I went to sleep with this last night. My daughter tucked me in. Every now and again, my beautiful, my gorge, my little 15-year-old, just blissful, light of energy, who I do everything I can for physically. I'm the CEO of the Do You Rules Cliche Jeff household. I gotta live as long as I can. So I work out every day. Anyway, she looks at me and she's like, yo, are you going on YouTube tomorrow with that thing across your face? And I say, yeah, why? She said, yeah, you're gonna get canceled. That doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, right? There's a reality to that. Interestingly, on a relatable note, one of the first Stoics, I forget his name, it eludes me. I read about him, and I talked about him in one of my previous episodes. When he was being taught to learn and to try to establish what will become essentially Stoicism. Think about it, that somebody somewhere has the ability to establish a new set of rules, values, principles, culture. One of the things that he was forced to do was to walk around. He would dump noodles all over him, and he would have to walk in the middle of town with the noodles dripped all over. Why? Because we care what it looks like. And the point of it is to not care what people think and not care what it looks like. But here's a reality that I've learned. First of all, if I wasn't clear already, I was obese by standards of American science and health. I was. So I can relate to you in that way. It sucks. We're going to get into that. But I'm going to argue and debate that the reflection of who you are physically has a massive implication about how you feel. And of course you watch and look at am I being judged? Am I being judged? Of course you do. That's why the dude that was learning how to create culture, he dumped noodles on them. You got to find a way to not care. That's a conversation for a different day. But I'm going to argue with you that we care. And we should. Why wouldn't you care? Why wouldn't you want to care of the physical reflection that you have in life, how it's viewed? At least to the extent of what you can control. There's some things, the shape of my head. I know what you're thinking. Right? I can't do nothing about that. I release that. But my physical body, how I look and the type of shape I'm in, I control that. So we're talking about what you have control over physically. And then as I wrote down, your physical is a reflection of how you feel about you. You can't tell me that I'm a regular standard dude, just like you. I live everyday life, just like you. On the path, at some point, by 2050, 80% of men, 81% of men, 82% of women will be overweight or obese. Come on, what are we talking about? It's a reflection of how you feel about you, which is also a reflection of how you feel about your life. How could it not be? 485 of the 500 CEOs for the top 500 companies in the world work out 5 days a week. Why? They feel pretty good about themselves. So they want to make efforts to do what they can to feel good about their life. I wrote this down, right? We could argue and debate. Everything about our life is how we see it. Is that not fair? We talked about visual stimulus. And I think there's a way to use visual stimuli to our advantage. But there's also a reality that the eyes are in the front of our head. So we're constantly looking out at the world, right? So in that way, everything about our life is how we see it. We use the visual sense highly. It is the most used, presuming you can see. There's some people who can't see, right? So when you want to talk about humbling yourself and having gratitude, you can see. When you ask the question, are you blessed today? Do you feel blessed? How are you doing? Can you see? That's a reason to feel blessed. Try not seeing. And I've watched some videos on the darkness retreat. Those things hit me in my soul. I start to toy with the idea that maybe I want to try that one day. I don't know, because the thought of going from not being able to see to being able to see, it looks like it really impacts people. Now, we're talking about this, right? Everything about our life is how we see it. So we're constantly looking. And then we're constantly looking at how life is seeing us based on the reflection life returns us, right? We look at how people watch us. We look at how people treat us. We look at how people provide to us or not, in the varying degrees that life offers a way for people to see us. It's all relational. If we haven't figured it out already, we have a relationship with ourselves. Clearly, I'm going to get into what that means in a second. But we're always looking at how we're being viewed. And we're always looking at how we're being judged. And in that way, we're probably judging ourselves based on how we're judged. And we judge others on how we judge ourselves based on how others are judging us. It's a weird kind of paradox of life, right? In any event, everything about our life is how we see it. Yet, I asked the question, how often do we see ourselves as ourselves? How often do you look at you, particularly in the realm of physicality, your physical, your body? Your body. How often do you look at your body? I wrote this down too. If you're always looking at yourself by what you see, right? If you're always looking at yourself by what you see, then what do you actually see as yourself in the improvement process, in the harmonious and unified process of trying to improve on the regular? The physical body requires this mind, body, and spirit, right? You need the mind and the spirit to help body. Body needs some support from spirit and from mind, right? But I'm asking the question: if you're looking at yourself, if you're always looking at yourself, okay, right. What do you see as yourself? This is why the reflection of what we see is so important. That's what I was trying to drive. To then I asked the question: have you looked at yourself lately? Have you looked at yourself lately? And have you taken view of what it looks like physically? So here's what I believe I could offer you that changed everything about my physical life. The CEO data, important. The obesity and overweight data by 2050, I think important. But I also believe if 8 out of 10 of us are on that path, clearly more of us don't care than care. Or maybe we believe that the physical wellness of ourselves is not a problem. If most of us are in this space where we're not physically fit, maybe those people know more than those who are physically fit, because clearly the minority are people who think that we should work on our bodies. Imagine that. Maybe it's not quite as logical as I think it is. Maybe it's not quite as reasonable. I don't know. But the data also tells me you don't take care of your physical body, it'll stop working. And when it stops working, forget about your mind and your spirit. It's no more. Okay, so I asked this question. Have you really taken view of yourself physically? Let me get into a little bit of a story about how I came to this epiphany and what makes me feel confident and comfortable to try to relate to you. We're just having a conversation. We're just having a conversation about your physical body. And I'm asking you, I'm just asking the question. Have you taken a view of yourself lately, physically? Because through my journey and endeavor, all the motivational themes, all the inspirational themes, all of the health scares and the health fears and the data, I went through a situation, right? All right, let me just say it like this. At one point, the obesity level I reached was 230 pounds. So it's not egregious on the scale of obesity, but clinically, I was way overweight. Okay? And I had my intervention from God. It was in 2021, the year I was turning 40. I was 39, and I was in the worst physical shape of my life. The worst physical shape of my life. And here's the reality to how I got there. Once I went through my epiphany, which I'll get to shortly, and my intervention from God, I came to the realization when I started to consider, I need to work out. I was 39, about to turn 40. Midlife crisis, right? And I reflected real quick, like, when is the last time I worked out? And it was around when I was 21, probably closer to 20. Either way, almost 20 years of no physical activity in the direction of strenuous pressure to the body that would be described as working out with the intention to keep myself healthy. Forget about growth. Forget about muscle stimulus. Forget about all the things that are aligned and associated with presenting your physical body in a way that shows that you're physically fit. I'm just talking about putting myself under the stress for health reasons. It had been almost 20 years. And left to consider that, it becomes very sobering. And I use that word sobering because there's pun intended there. The message I received in my ear, I heard God talk to me. Spend more time with your children and your wife, your family. That's it. I said it before. If you follow me enough, you know that's the message God delivered to me. Spend more time with your children and your wife. Massively powerful. So what that translated into me was, yo, stop drinking. Right? Whatever. That's how it translated to me. The first thing I did was to stop drinking. Yo, I got to stop drinking. So what was sobering? Going from 20 to 40, pretty much at that juncture, I put a lot of investment into drinking and overeating. How else do you become physically overweight? You're destroying yourself with things that put you in a position of being physically out of shape and overweight. It hurts. It hurts. So I considered, all right, what's my why? Because that's what it's, what's your why? What's your why? What's your why? What's going to keep you going? What's going to keep you going? And yeah, the wife and the kids, you certainly want to do that. You certainly want to be around from them. But I went through a journey physically where I knew I had to make a change. And all I did to really incentivize myself and to really give me the movement I needed spiritually and mentally was I straight up was one day about to get into the shower. I was what I looked like when I'm about to get into the shower. And I just looked at myself right in the mirror. And then I looked down at myself. And all I saw was big belly cliche Jeff. And for whatever the reason, I looked at it and was just like, man, I just don't want to look like this anymore. I just don't. I'm tired of walking around like this. I'm tired of walking around with looking all kind of compressed in here, and then the shirt stretched out at the bottom. All my, I started to look at my white tee. I wear a lot of white t-shirts. They almost had like belly imprints at the bottom of the shirt, and I was just like, yo, I'm tired of looking like this. That was enough for me. And I don't know that that could be enough for you, but I asked the question, if we care so much about our physical presence, how do you feel when you look at yourself? Have you really looked at yourself to ask yourself the question, yo, how do I feel about my physical body? Health aside, all those other things are obvious. Health has been important for the eternity of life. Without a healthy body, you will die faster. Clearly, it's not enough if so many of us are on the path to be overweight and obese. So maybe we could use, if we're ever going to use vanity as incentive, do you look at yourself and say, yo, I'm tired of looking like this. I'm just tired of looking like this. I'm tired of looking how I look. I'm tired of the size of the clothes. That was a big thing for me. I looked in my closet. There was no reason for me to have XXX on my shirts. I said, no more. I don't want to look like this no more. That's what it took for me. I don't know if that works for you. I don't know if it resonates. Maybe you got to look at your kids, your wife, your husband, your significant other, whoever it is. Maybe you are and have had a breakthrough financially because you put in all this work, and while you were putting in all this work, you were stuffing down cheeseburgers and fries and rum and cokes and bourbon and wine, and you just kind of was just so into what you were doing, you forgot. But now that you got all this money, you don't want to die. You definitely want to die. Or you're trying to find out how to get this money, how to get this life, how to live this lifestyle. You ain't going to get there if you ain't physically fit. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But I wanted to offer you this, right? If you want to go on a physical journey, I think that what I found sobering again in my endeavors out was I didn't have a target goal for weight. I didn't say I'm 230 pounds. I want to get down to 210, 200, 190, 180, whatever. Right? I just said I can't keep looking at myself like this. I just don't want to see my belly when I look down. You feel what I'm saying? I wound up getting down to 169 pounds. Imagine that. I lost 61 pounds in, I don't know, it took me like 4 months, 5 months to do it. Eliminating alcohol, that'll help. Alcohol mixed with soda, mixed with eating at night. You just stop doing that. And you go for a couple of walks, a couple of runs. You'd be surprised how it falls off. But here's why I think it's important not to be so results oriented when you're looking to make a physical change. Imagine that. Consider that when we think about, oh, I'm going to make a physical change, we start researching all the fitness gurus and we look at all these immaculate workouts for perfection towards whatever the calisthenics and lifting or cardio and running and rowing and biking and all these things. We have all these visions of grandeur when it comes to physical work, to physical prowess. And I'm going to look like this and I'm going to have the body of my dreams and I'm going to be a fucking swimsuit model. That's not, I don't think that that's incentive enough. Here's the reality too. You think you want that. You may not really want that. You may just want physical health. You may just want to look down and be like, yo, I'm tired of seeing my belly. You know what I mean? And if you can just have that baseline, then look what I wrote down, right? We can agree that physically, I want to have a certain appearance that resembles someone who takes care of themselves. Imagine that. That when somebody looks at you, they can immediately think what you think about yourself or how you feel about yourself because of how you are viewed based on how you take care of yourself. We haven't even got into making sure you're well groomed, making sure you spray some cologne, put some damn deodorant on. You understand? Lotion up a little bit, put on some clothes that actually make you look like you. Some of us get loose like that. Some of us get too comfortable being comfortable. Everything is not we're at home chilling and we let ourselves loose and we just don't want. No. We got to put some effort into how we look. But I don't care. And I think that it's important professionally, especially. I think it's important as a man, as the symbol of my faith. Like when you look at me and I'm like, yo, I got a wife and kids. You can already know by looking at me how I run my house. Come on, man. That's important. That's important. How we're viewed is important physically. It just is. It just is. And how you present yourself physically. You're not going to want to present yourself physically in a way that says, yo, let me get, I get into this debate and this thought. I don't know why I'm a suit and tie kind of guy. I know you see me all the time in a sweater. You know what I'm saying? I got my Stay Rich t-shirt on because, again, I'm also, at this time, I'm going to be working out. But I present myself to the world in a way that's like, yo, I take care of myself. I take care of myself. So when you approach me with the respect and the level of respect for someone who takes care of themselves. Don't overstep. That's a boundary. When you take care of yourself physically, you establish a boundary to the world like, yo, I'm nobody to be fucked with. It just is. When you're sloppy physically, the world is like, yo, that dude's sloppy. How do I know that? I was sloppy. I told you. Buddha said it best. In the battle with egos, he who loses it wins. I'm not judging you. I'm telling you what the reality of everyday life is and how it works. Think about it. Think about when you look at somebody who looks sloppy. What do you think about? You respect them less. You can't tell me you don't. Think about when you see somebody physically fit. You kind of like, oh, let me not, that person looks like they get it in. Right? Let me not do that. Think about it. So I wrote this down. It's not about our results, right? What we want the physical endeavor and physical health and physical lifestyle to be is just that. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. Except that today, 20 minutes, 20 minutes a day, right? When it's a lifestyle, you don't have to be concerned with results Time will take care of that for you. So when I was 230, and I didn't say I want to go on to 170. I just said I'm going to work out every day. And over the course of time, for me, it might have been quicker. It might have been longer. For you, it might be longer. It might be even quicker. I'm not concerned with the time. I'm concerned with the lifestyle. And when you live a certain physical lifestyle, the physical appearance and health and all that takes care of itself over time. Time helps you with that. What I'm suggesting and offering my beautiful, blessed people is make it a lifestyle. I promise you, we go to the extent of wanting to create these insane. And listen, if you're one of those people that can be a CrossFit type, I lift and I do calisthenics, I sprint and I jog, I run marathons and triathlons and super marathons, and I also walk for peace in the world. Go ahead. That's beautiful. Some of us, most of us, a lot of us, to get away from that 80%, essentially men and women, 80% of us will be overweight by 2050 or obese. Some of it just requires 20 minutes a day of physical fitness. And it doesn't have to be massively strenuous. It can be a jog. It can be a walk. It can be a lift. It can be a high intensity, but it can't be nothing. And if you could commit at least 20 minutes a day, what eventually will happen is you'll commit more time because you'll love it, you'll enjoy it. But time will take care of the results for you. A lot of us are working against nothing. A lot of us, I just told you, 2021 to boom, I was about to turn 40. All that time in between, I did nothing. As soon as you go and you move in the direction of changing yourself physically, time takes care of it quick. Because it's been that long. All right. I also wrote this down, right? This is a popular line in the improvement space, in the space of consciousness, in the space of contemplation, which is what we're about on the Do You Rules. How you doing, my beautiful people? How you doing? Huh? How you doing? The mind will quit before the body does. The mind will quit before the body does. I wrote this down now. The mind will quit faster with a weak body. I learned that. First of all, quite literally, the mind's going to quit because the body's going to die, and then the mind is nothing. What are we talking about, right? But in that way, that's why I asked you, when's the last time you took a look at yourself? Because when you start to take a look at yourself physically, and you come to the realization and the conclusion that this is not really where I want to be physically. I don't care who you are. I can't see it. I can't fathom somebody who says, I'm cool being overweight and out of shape and obese. I can't fathom it. No one, it's funny, it's somewhat intentional in that you've lost sight of what you're doing. Like when I drank every night and I ate late every night and I didn't do anything, I lost track. The same way on the journey towards the ultimate level of success, it's just a lot more painful. A day turns into a week, turns into a month, turns into years and decades. That's what happens to us physically. We don't break womb out of shape. You earn that. Yeah, that's earned. And some of it is ignorance. We're raising our children today. God bless. But we're putting them in difficult situations if we don't try to promote physical health for them. We just are. And then all the things that come with being physically out of shape, for us as adults that it hurts, that we have a little more emotional maturity to do with it, children lack it. And then children are very mean and vicious at certain age groups, man. 10, 11, 12. They say some things. We put our children through some difficult times they don't have to go through because discipline and the foresight and the wherewithal and the consciousness, it can't be intentional. It can't be intentional. We don't intentionally do this, but in the same way, when we intentionally stop looking at ourselves, then we submit to it, it becomes very comfortable and easy. We do this to ourselves. In that way, it's intentional. So the mind doesn't quit, or the mind will quit before the body does, but also consider the mind trusts the body to the extent that it knows it's capable. And whether you've come to, this is why the subconscious is so important. This is why we can't just flip the switch and keep the switch on and active physically. Because the mind is like, I've been watching you. I've been watching you for the past 20 years. You've been doing a lot of nothing physically. We avoid walking the steps. We take the elevator. We avoid walking, period. We get right, like, it's easy for me to go from my house. I walk down the steps to get to the garage, into my car. I drive to the store. I drive to the bus stop. I drive to work. I go into the office. I take the elevator. I sit in my cube. I sit in my office. Does it sound familiar? I brought my lunch, so I heat it up in the microwave. I sit down. I eat. I walk down the stairs. I walk back into the elevator to get into my car, to drive into my garage, right? To go into my house. And you do this and you repeat this over and over and over and over and over. And you're like, but I haven't really been overeating. I haven't, and forget about the products. I'm not even here to talk about the products of the food that we eat and how most of it should be banned. All these dyes and these sugars. I'm not even on the fact that you'll start to realize that when it becomes a lifestyle. But what you have to realize first is that physically you're doing a lot of nothing. This is that sedentary lifestyle. A lot of us can be living lives where we have to go work and we have to go provide and still be sedentary. Because, you can Uber it, you can Uber Eats, right? There's not a lot of reason and incentive to move today. Have you not come to that realization? Why can we be predictable that 80% of us will be overweight and obese by 2050? 25 years is going to come quick. Why? Because it is already understood the lifestyle that Americans are leading, in particular Americans. There's no reason to move. We Instacart everything, right? Forget steps. A lot of us don't get steps. Oh, but I haven't had this in a long time and I haven't consumed that in a long time. Yeah, but also you haven't moved in a long time. There's compound effect. This is why everything that we do to try to make ourselves better is just the inverse. You've compounded weakness for way too long, for decades, and it's so easy. The mind is so at ease just being like, I don't got to do nothing. I don't got to move. You put yourself in a state like that physically where you're like, if I move, it hurts. And so in that way, the mind knows the body can't endure. The mind knows, it trusts the body to know where the body's at. It knows. You can't even walk those stairs. Because left with the option, you're taking the elevator up. Look at your habits. Look at the lifestyle. Look at the ease in which we live with. It's not physically challenging at all. At all. All right. I wrote this down, so I think it's important. It's Monday, my beautifully blessed people. It's Monday. I got to get into some breakfast for the kids. They got to get to school. I got to get them to school. And I got to get to work today. But I've enjoyed having this talk with you so far. People who are physically fit are seen different. And I asked the question why, right? If you come across someone who's physically fit, and you know that they're physically fit, and you look at them, you see them different. There's a demand from someone, and I said this already, but I think it's just slightly more detail. Someone who is physically fit demands a certain level of respect. Regardless of how dense they might be spiritually or psychologically or intellectually, you know what I mean? When you see somebody who's has physical prowess, you just kind of, you watch a little bit. That person is that person. A lot of things are implied by that, right? But also, if you look at somebody who's physically fit, they vibe different. They vibe with more confidence. They vibe with even a little more eloquence physically with their aura, with their energy and their presence. They walk in, they feel a little better about themselves. Is that not logical and reasonable? Do you not see that? Do you not understand how that could be? That if I'm physically fit and I know I put myself through all this work and the strenuous process and arduous process of the consistency it takes to be disciplined enough to grow physically and be healthy, I feel better. When I feel better, I walk better. I stand up straighter. I'm more inclined to put on that cologne, make sure I shave, and got some gear on that makes me look good. To match, why wouldn't I? So in that way, physically fit people just vibe different, which also means people who aren't physically fit vibe different. What's the vibe of somebody who's physically unfit? They kind of mope around. You ever watch? They drag their feet, right? They're like a sloth through everything. You ever look at people? You ever watch? That was me. That might be you. You might need to look at that, at how you're moping around through life, and how what you feel about yourself on the inside is reflected on the outside. And when you don't take care of yourself on the outside, it's reflected on the inside. Why do we think? Why is the improvement process so important for me? Everyday life, the harmonious process, the unified process, the Trinity, mind, body, spirit. When you don't take care of your body, it affects your mind and your spirit, and then you wear it. Your physical essentially is how you wear your life. My G, my beautiful people. Don't walk around low vibe, slunch down, head down, with your energy all low, dragging your feet everywhere. That's a terrible way to feel. That just movement hurts. You think it doesn't. You think it doesn't because you haven't looked at yourself. You haven't put yourself through a little bit of stress and strain. See what it does to you. See what it does to you. So I'll leave you with this. Aside from the fact that I really would love to see all of us healthy. Seriously, straight up. Because, man, it's just so much better to be healthy. You feel better about yourself. You're at a lot less risk. I want to leave you with the message of forget what you want it to look like. Forget what you want it to look like. Forget the beach body, right? South Beach and whatever. Focus in on what you don't want it to look like. What you don't want it to look like is much easier to work with than what you want it to look like, because there's also a reality that whole genetics thing has a play. There's just a way that you're built that you can't really predict what it's going to look like. And also, you might have done so much harm to your body physically, and I try to be relatable in this way, and I understand that what you could have looked like if you start when you're about to be 40 like me versus when you started when you're 20, you've just done so much damage that you may never get into peak visual, right? Like you may work out every day and not look like somebody who works out every day because of the way that you've beat up your body for so long. But however, and in the same way, we can work with what we don't want it to look like. So that's why I suggest take a good look at yourself physically. Take a real good look at yourself physically and just ask, is this what I want to look like? And if the answer is no, like it was for me, you got to say to yourself, I don't want to look like this anymore. That's enough emphasis. Then you make it a lifestyle. And when you make it a lifestyle around, this is not what I want to do. This is not how I want to be. This is not how I want to live and look. Then time takes care of the rest for you. And at minimum, regardless of what it looks like, you can take solace and have peace and contentment in knowing, I take care of myself physically. And when I take care of myself physically, I'm healthier spiritually, I'm healthier mentally, I'm healthier emotionally. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.